podcast called Make American Manufacturing Great Again, where we dive deep into the world of technology, innovation, and entrepreneurship. I'm Maithili, Chief of Strategy at AxD, and with me live from Michigan, USA, is our Chairman and co founder, Mr. Raj Batra. Together, we'll share our journey at AxD, insights, and the latest trends shaping our industry. Whether you're a tech enthusiast, an aspiring entrepreneur, or simply curious about the future of American manufacturing, you're in the right place. Let's get started. I want to start by introducing my guest to the audience, who has and continues to have an incredible career journey, which I want to highlight. Raj has had a remarkable career of over 30 years with Siemens. The best part of the story is Raj started as an individual contributor and rose to the president of industry automation, the president of digital factory, and culminating with the president of digital industries. Raj was appointed chairman of the board for NEMA, where he served his full term, and was also appointed chairman of the Manufacturers Alliance, demonstrating how collaboration with CEOs and leaders can drive business action that reinforces the business agenda. In his early days with Siemens, Raj and a small team ventured into uncharted markets to deliver important wins in fiercely competitive industries such as automotive, aerospace, and defense. This raised the US profile and set a strong precedent for the digital industries today. All told, Raj's work has created an impact not only for thousands of customers and partners in plants across America, but also the world. For the Siemens colleagues, he has inspired these past 3 decades. For the next phase of his extraordinary career, Raj continues to serve on four American public and private company boards, including one of India's largest employee owned companies and private owned companies. Additionally, Raj is a sought after advisor to amongst the world's largest sovereign wealth funds with assets of over $1 trillion in the areas of automation, digital transformation, and AI. With a wide ranging portfolio as an industry expert and thought leader, he has built a career on guiding big decisions and driving impactful results across global markets. Raj, it is a true honor to have you on this podcast and on the board of AxD. Thank you for being here with me today.
Thank you, Maithili. Thanks for that really elaborate introduction. I'm honored, but remind me to shorten that next time, and I'm going to make it a little bit smaller. But it was fun to hear it. So thank you. It's great to be here with you today.
Now, of course, I want to do justice to your introduction, and you really have had such a diverse range of portfolios in your career, and I think it's just that we put it out there. So once again, thank you for being here today. And yeah, before diving deep into our topic of the day, I just want to start by talking a little bit about your upbringing. Please tell us about where you were born, where you grew up, how your schooling has been.
Yeah. Well, thanks, Maithili. I'll try to make that short because, but I also believe it's really important, right? Because these are the formative years, and they set the framework for who you are and what you're going to do. So I happen to be born from Indian immigrant parents that immigrated to the United States in the '60s, and like many immigrants, they both did their education here. My dad was an attorney, my mom was an educator. Unfortunately, in the very early years, in the '70s, my father had passed away, so my mom raised us as two boys, and I always say she did more with her desire and her will than anything material could ever buy you, and I think for that I'm very, very indebted. But we grew up here in the United States, and then after a certain number of years went to India and studied in a Himalayan boarding school. Very, very strict discipline, very tough academic curriculum. So you can imagine coming as American kids, growing up as American kids, then shifting into the uh, Indian education. So in the Indian education in the Himalayan mountains in a boarding school, so you're away from your parents, but you learn the art of resilience. You learn tenacity, you learn to survive, and you learn to adapt, and then you learn to thrive. So sometimes your toughest experiences become your best experiences. And I would say that that was a very, very big and impactful thing in my career that really set the stage for working with people, inspiring people, having great emotional intelligence. Of course, there's so many people that have great intellectual aptitude, but the question is, can you connect with people? Can you build teams? Can you inspire teams? And I think those years I really credit for helping me do a lot of those things.
True. And what would you say was your biggest learning in this boarding school? And was there like a turning point during your schooling where you went, yeah, I'm going to remember this for life. Like this is a lesson I will take
Yeah,
away with me.
yeah. So so just like everyone goes to boarding school, I was in fourth or fifth grade, and my mom wanted to make sure we were cultured, we were well educated, and this happened to be a multi-hundred-year-old boarding school, very strict discipline. And so you would all see the kids that are getting dropped off as the school year starts. Their parents are dropping them off, and they're crying and whining and holding onto the car as the car is going away. And but then you learn to adopt. You learn once the sadness is over of being separated. You learn how to thrive and adopt in your ecosystem, right? And it just shows you how resilient we are as human beings to be able to do that. So when you get over your own tears and your own sorrow and some of that, then you really learn to adopt and succeed and build friends for life, and enjoy the moment and enjoy the environment. And that's, I think, what I really took away. So sometimes your worst experiences in the start become your best experiences.
Wow, that's wonderful. And I'm so glad to hear that you spent a few years here in India. And anytime that you visit India again, you must, of course, come to Pune, where I am. And
uh,
it would be great to host
Definitely.
you.
Yeah, thank you. I definitely, I'm very fond of India, and I enjoyed it. And it was a place where, when you're immersed in the boarding school, obviously you have to speak Hindi and you have to, learn to adopt. So for me, that all was a great experience. Even though we spoke English in school, and our curriculum was done in English, but you have to catch up in Hindi and catch up in Sanskrit, and be able to pass standardized exams. And so this was for us a really big journey, right? Because
Yeah.
in summer, when everyone was enjoying themselves, we were studying Hindi and Sanskrit, so we could get through the exams and get through the standardized exams. And so that was really a pretty tough experience, along with a very tough Indian academic system.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, you're right there. The schooling is quite tough in India, and you really have to be academically at your best. That's how
Yeah,
it goes. Uh, but okay, so you finished your schooling here in India, then you went back to the States.
yeah.
Um, and then how was your journey from then on? How were the initial years in Siemens like?
Yeah, so then I did my, and I'll just make one more comment about boarding school. What's interesting in boarding school is there's a very well-roundedness that you acquire in boarding school, right? Because you're doing debate, you're playing sports, you're doing a lot of things, and you're pretty immersed in it, right? And you are very immersed in so many extracurricular activities beyond academics, that it's that well-roundedness that I believe carried through in other parts of my life. And I would still look back on that as a very, very great experience, is to have the well-roundedness and to be able to do things where money didn't have an impact, because money didn't do
Mhm.
much for you in the boarding school. You couldn't buy anything, and you couldn't get to town, and you couldn't, go anywhere, because you had to be on the campus. And of course, we're in a hill station, so you're in the first rim of the Himalayan mountain range, which is about 6 or 7 thousand feet up above sea level. So, so yeah, so it's just, you learned how to enjoy and survive where
Mhm.
money wasn't the deciding factor, right? And because it just didn't get you much. So it was about reading and enjoying your fellow students and your fellow people. And I thought that was a great experience. Not one that we easily get in this day and age. And of course, that
Right.
was an era where there was no iPhones and you didn't have iPhones, so it wasn't even easy to make a call, there. And sometimes hot water was a luxury, which we
Oh,
take
yeah.
for granted in Bell Station. So it was neat. So yeah, then I came back to the States and I did my engineering degree. I did my bachelor's in electrical engineering. I co-opted while I was doing that, and so I always had industry experience. I thought that was very, very valuable to be able to have industry experience while you were going to school. So it gave me a different perspective, right? So I was able to really get my school paid for, which was great, number one. And I was able to also build industry experience at a very, very early age. Then I got recruited out of school in my with my engineering degree, and then I went off and did my MBA, and did it, with the company with Siemens at that time. So yeah, and I started in Siemens, I think in '93 as an individual contributor. Um,
Mhm.
at a time where we were trying to Americanize the brand. So you have to remember 30 some years ago in Siemens, we weren't well known. I mean, Siemens was a well known global German company, but you would see
Right.
sporadic pieces of technology in the United States. So it just wasn't widespread. So those were the era, that was the era of pioneering, right? And I always think
Mhm.
that God, one of the most important lessons you can learn is how to pioneer things. So when you look at business that's established, you look at business that you've already won, you look at business that you're maintaining. You think of the people behind you that really pioneered it. I always told the people coming in after me, I said, you're never going to have it as tough as we had it. I mean, of course, they have different challenges, but I said you're going to inherit things that where the base was built, and so you could now expand off the base, and
Right.
you know and you learn how to deal with rejection and how to enter into markets, into
Yeah.
fiercely competitive markets, and it's okay to lose, because when you lose, you learn what it takes to win. And I think uh that's a really good lesson in pioneering. And I just, I think those lessons and skills always stayed with me as I moved to general management and then running things from individual contributor to thousands of people.
Wonderful. And what you said is so true. Siemens today is recognized as a global company. It's no more just German, although it originated in Germany, but Siemens USA is huge. Siemens India is doing very well. And it's nice to hear that you were at the forefront of this globalization, let's say.
Yeah, yeah, and that's also another thing that Siemens taught you. It's probably one of the great true global companies in the world, right? So when people
Hmm.
talk about globalization and being global, one thing is to be cosmetically global, and one thing is to really truly be global, where you're
Yeah.
rooted in the education and political systems of countries. And I think that's what Siemens was. So when I traveled the world so many times over in different places, I just, you could see how rooted the company and its founders were in these countries, and having been there for hundreds of years, and in the educational curriculums, and in places where the standard was just well accepted and a market quality. So it gave me a good view in the art of globalization, right? And I never forgot that, and realized how powerful that is, and
Yeah.
how to leverage globalization. So I think that was great. So all in all, Siemens, was, and when we left and I left in 2024 in June, after 3 decades. I just had great opportunities on the horizon that I had to take, and it was a really, really tough decision. But I think I absolutely made the right one. We recorded record revenue, record profit, an all-time high. So it was just a great time to come out. We were coming off of COVID, and we
Yeah.
had a few tailwinds coming off of COVID, but nonetheless, we just, we were in the billion range, and which was just phenomenal from where we started. So
Yeah.
explosive growth, pioneering growth. You felt proud of it, and you felt proud to build these vertical markets that were so tough to get into.
Yeah.
But we did it, and had a great team of people, and inspired a lot of people along the way, because it's not a single person's job. It's
No.
that the
Yeah.
organization at large. So I think those were my great takeaways off a really great 3 decade career with Siemens. An experience you couldn't buy on the open market. So really taught me a lot about business.
Yeah, your journey sounds simply incredible. And like you said, you were there for 3 decades. And you said about how you had an incredible team. And that's where I wanted to go. I wanted to ask you how the American work culture goes, and how does teamwork really look like in the US?
Yeah.
And
Well,
how was Siemens culture different, let's say, from other companies? And how did you guys manage to grow at such a monumental pace?
yeah. So you know what? So there are good things and sometimes bad things about multinational cultures. And we were a multinational company, not domiciled in the United States. So you had to deal with two different cultures, and a lot of decisions that were made in execution and things like that. But I did it for 30 years as an individual contributor, working with people, sort of across the Atlantic, and then also, as a leader and as we were running and scaling organizations, and sometimes there's, my only criticism, sometimes it runs slow, right? Because you
Mhm.
have to get a lot of ratification on decisions, and the globe is involved, and we're culturally not the same. But you have to also, but the great part about it is that things where the Americans are very very good at, our speed, our execution, our ruthless pragmatism on people, and understanding things that are in the gray zone, and being able to make expedient decisions, being able to right size workforces, being able to do the things you have to do. On the flip side of that, I mean, Germany was always strong in innovation. I mean, they're a great innovation company, very strong discipline in execution.
Mhm.
And so I think when you marry those capabilities together, you've got a better product than
Yeah.
just having it one way. So I always saw it that way.
Yeah. Yeah, I have to agree with you. I was in Europe for 5 years, 3 years
Right,
in
right,
Germany, and
right,
then
right.
2 years in Belgium. And I know what you mean when you say there's a lot of red tape. I mean, Germans love systems in place, and Americans, on the other hand, it's about speed and execution. And yeah, when you get the two together, it yeah, it's a win-win situation, I think, and you just have to find the right balance. I think in Siemens you did that really well. So well
Yeah, and,
done.
and I and I and I think you have to personalize it, right? So you have to, you could say that it's not good if you wanted to think that way, but I think the other way of doing that is to say, look, it's this is what I would get out of it if I leveraged it fully, right? And so
Mhm.
you want to be able to leverage things fully, right? And of course there are always downsides to everything, but I always tried to take the things that were best and put them together, and then work and do what I had to do. And it was a great 3 decade run for me. We were super successful in a lot of things, and like anything else, there's a time to pass this on to your successor. And in my case, my successor was bringing the new software world in with automation, and I thought that was a really good thing. It was a really good platform for the company to move forward in, and so just to me, it made a lot of sense. And
Yeah.
I had some great opportunities that I wasn't going to turn down. So I really decided to take advantage of that.
Mhm. Awesome. And like you said, you are now out of Siemens after 3 decades, but you didn't stop there. You have not retired. You are on the board of, yeah, you're a member of multiple boards. You have been advising, world sovereign funds. So tell us about this decision of yours to really, go out there again in a different light. How did you decide and how are you going about it? Being a part of so many boards, being in leadership positions still.
Yeah. So I think that your experience culminates
Yeah.
to helping advise and now use it to do bigger things and faster things. And I always believe that, the experience that I acquired on the open market, walking thousands of manufacturing facilities all over the globe, helping them automate. And you have to imagine in the 90s, it was more about automation, less digitalization, because that
Yes.
word wasn't really used at that time.
Yeah.
But we were doing advanced automation and doing a lot more of it. Then came in industrial software and simulation and digital transformation. You were marrying those things together. So so all that experience really helps you drive better decision quality, and when you join a board, it's really interesting because these are American public company boards. They run, they are American companies. They're, some are public, some are private, some are private equity,
Mhm.
and they run very fast. They deliver their quarterly earnings. I mean, they have a guidance, and they try to execute to that, and have a beat, in all those areas. And it's just very rigorous. The rigor on delivering that is just superb. So I think it's a great reflection and
Mhm.
understanding as to, how do you work in those kind of companies. And so I happened to get on boards early when I was in Siemens, probably a bit earlier than most. I think I was 50 when I joined my first public board, and I'm still on that board, by the way. You have to
Mm-hmm.
be reappointed by the shareholders every year, which I think
Yeah.
is very important. So you have to remember you are working for the shareholders. You're not working for the CEO, and you're helping advise the CEO. You're helping with strategic advice. And a board to me is a compilation of great expertise.
Mm-hmm.
It's skill, discipline in a lot of areas uh, that one person singularly doesn't bring, but the integrated whole of the board brings a lot of depth and a lot of diversity. Some are
Yeah.
finance, some are audit, some are legal, some are great. So great, a great diversity of expertise, and I think that's what a great board is. And I've seen the great ones. I mean, I'm on some incredible boards, with great chairmen so some of that when I started was very new, but I mean, you get into it and I find that really invigorating, to be able to use my expertise and my know-how about, you know, markets, about manufacturing operations, about innovation, about R&D, about sales, about verticalization, about, customer engagement, about net promoter score, and really empowering people when you do this at scale, from small businesses to big businesses, and the rigor of being an operator and delivering on EBIT and delivering on your top line, right? And having a toughness in pursuit of those goals. I think all that stuff plays out very well when you bring that know-how and expertise onto a board, and you're able to leverage it. So for me, it was a great time. I mean, I was at the apex of my career, with the learning. I mean, I can always learn more and never stop, but I thought it would just be a good time to help advise other companies and their CEOs on how can we improve things and make it better.
And some of these companies, they are in America, some of them are in the Middle East. And now, of course, there's AxD. Um, what inspired you to start AxD?
Yeah, yeah. So well, most of these companies, the boards that I'm on are domiciled in the United States, right? So,
Yeah. Okay.
one is a Nasdaq company, a great company in the semi conductor manufacturing industry. One is a very broad, diversified industrial manufacturer, incredible set of businesses, very profitable. Some businesses have 90% market share in the United States. So it just shows you how relevant they are and how important they are to U.S. manufacturing. And some are private equity models, and some are independently and privately owned, but are with incredibly strong balance sheets, and cash positions, and in the field of automation and digital transformation and
Mhm.
um, you know, um, running the IT OT circuit and having a lot of expertise in the IT OT worlds. So those are all domiciled in the United States. And then, I had an opportunity to advise one of the world's largest sovereign wealth funds. I can't say more about it than that, but because of certain rules. So, and I thought this is a great place to form AXD, and the word should be very literal to what you're doing. It's automation and digital. Sometimes it's automation only. Sometimes it's times digital. Sometimes it's digital transformation, and you get the integrated whole, and you get a lot of power when you do it when you do both of them. And I thought it was a very fitting acronym for the
Mhm.
company. But what I liked most about AXD is when you're advising sovereign wealth, there's a lot of financial acumen in these entities. And there's no shortage of financial people that work on the data room that are putting data and analysis together. But the data is only as good as it is good, right? And so you can
Mhm.
analyze data, but if it's not great data, then how do you know what you're analyzing and parsing and making future projections with is really relevant, right? So when companies pay a big multiple for a
Yeah.
business, that multiple has to be qualitatively vetted. That means the way to
Mhm.
qualitatively vet it, quantitatively, you could do it with all your financial people that are working the data room. Qualitatively, if you're paying a super high multiple, much more than private equity companies would tell you that it's valued at, well, then there's got to be a future value that you have to be able to determine.
Mhm.
And the way to determine that is to look at the customer base, the customers in the markets. Do they substantiate the future value? And so sometimes it's a lot of forensic work to go out,
Mhm.
look at these customers and markets to make sure that what you're paying for, you're really getting. Because there won't be another set of 30 customers you don't know about. I mean, the
Yeah.
customers that are basing what the value is are the customers that should at least have the core of backing up the multiple you're paying. And if the customer says, well, look, I don't see a future for that, then it's probably not a good deal, and you gotta scrap it. And so for me, it's been a great experience because again, lets me use my expertise and knowledge and know-how. And AXD is so critical because to do that, you have to have the right executors and people that integrate technology. So AXD is a compilation of so many people. I mean, Michael, you're part of it. You have an incredible background. You went to one of the top engineering universities, and you're sort of a great technical mind. People wouldn't know it by your moderating today because you're doing a great job moderating. But as a technical mind, when you get set to it, you're able to do a lot of things. And you need this kind of technical acumen in AXD to be able to assess and evaluate and also implement. You want implementers because implementers know the goods and bads of what works and what doesn't work. So, if you're going to buy something, you're going to pay a lot of money for it, and you're going to spend billions of dollars or hundreds of millions of dollars for these companies. I mean, we have to know that it works, and we have to know that the technology is viable and it's future oriented, and it's gonna stick, right?
Yeah.
And it just can't be vaporware that you're spending a lot of money for that's never going to materialize into anything. So people that execute have
Mm.
this kind of knowledge, very different than people that just do product development and PowerPoint and are selling products. So the people we have in AXD are really pioneers in their space. And I know on these podcasts, we'll get a chance to interview a number of them and really hear about the depth and knowledge of their expertise. I mean, Abhay Deshmukh is just a pioneer in the space that he plays in.
Yeah.
Very attractive to us as AXD, and he was just a perfect person to come in and co-lead AXD. And I think he innovates and designs and pioneers the machine tool market and technology, and does it, and it just that takes a lot of expertise to do it,
Yeah.
and to build a team of people that can do it, and OT cyber and digital transformation and advanced automation systems. So we have a whole number of people that are very capable of, and a network of even more people that are very capable of assessing anything we have to assess and implementing what we have to implement. So this was the basis of AXD, and I'm super excited about it. The team is outstanding. I think there are going to be incredible things to come, uh,
Yeah.
even beyond sovereign wealth. So I would believe when the United States starts the sovereign wealth fund, we will again be a great advisor for the United States. I have no doubt, and there are already some good, strong indications that could happen.
Love this. Yeah, I think our strategy in AXD is that we really listen to our customers and to the market. So, what does the manufacturing industry need today? It's more of a pull from the industry. And yeah, our offerings, like you already mentioned, we are doing cybersecurity, we are doing robotic automation because let's be real, automation is not redundant even today.
Yeah,
Factories need it, factories of the future need it. We are doing advanced planning and scheduling, really getting into IT for manufacturing. And it's all very exciting for me personally because in the past, I have done some research and I love research work. But here at AXD, it's more about the direct impact on the shop floor, how we can really help businesses with their bottom line. So I'm really excited to be a part of AXD. And you mentioned Mr. Abhay Deshmukh, he's the co-founder and CEO. Um, how did you guys meet? I
yeah,
still don't know the story.
that's really good. While I was at Siemens, Abe was doing some integration work here in the country, and we happened to meet at a system integration conference. I was presenting there as a executive from Siemens, and he was in the audience, and we happened to connect and just sort of hit it off. We had a few dinners, and I was just I was very impressed with Abe because Abe, he has an entrepreneurial spirit, and obviously what he's done has been pretty incredible in building his own company. And then when he decided to join AXD, I said, "Listen, I said, we need someone with your knowledge and expertise and drive and tenacity to make sure the plane flies, right?" And he's that kind of guy, very trustworthy, very credible, very intelligent in what he does, and very, very thoughtful. And I think any company that has this expertise and this capability is going to benefit from this. And so again, I believe, um, and that for us was just a sort of the journey of a good multi-decade relationship, maybe a decade plus. And so
Yes.
now it's really come to the forefront with AxD, and I believe it's just going to be another great decade for us.
Your industry expertise and your leadership experience in the US and Abhai's entrepreneurial spirit and his experience with automation and machine tool manufacturing, I think we couldn't have asked for a better leadership at AXD.
Yeah.
So, yeah, really exciting times ahead.
And I'm
And
and
talking
I'm
about, yeah,
you
go
know,
ahead.
Michael, and I'm looking forward to interviewing Abhay. So maybe I'm going to try to take your
Yes.
seat, which is going to be a tough act to follow because you're doing a really good job. But
Oh, thank you.
I'm gonna do that, and I'm gonna talk to Abhay and try to extract all his pearls of wisdom out with some very great innovative questions, and I'm sure he has good answers for me. So
Absolutely. More exciting podcasts coming up in this
yes,
series.
true.
And yeah, talking about the future, I want to ask you, what are you the most excited about today when it comes to the future of manufacturing and digital transformation in the US?
Yeah. So that's a really good question, and so I like the headline of your podcast, "Making American Manufacturing Great Again." I mean, I know the current administration is going to really love that headline because that is the headline in different ways for the current administration, and not being political, but the one thing I really like that's so interesting for me about this market in the United States is, number one, manufacturing is being refocused, right, in the United States. So everyone realizes it's paramount that to have great GDP in the country, you have to have a high percentage of manufacturing in the country. So countries that are very prosperous and sustainably very prosperous have a higher percentage of manufacturing as a percentage of their GDP. And I think number one, we need that. We outsourced a lot. We let a lot go in the 70s and later. And, a lot of things got outsourced to China. A lot of things got outsourced then later to, sub tier two countries that were cheaper. And it's tough to innovate and manufacture when you're not doing it in proximity. So you can innovate in one place, and then if you send the
Yeah.
manufacturing elsewhere, it's tough to really get it perfected, right?
Mhm.
And because they need to be close together. And I think today more than ever we have an aging asset base in the United States that's 3-4 decades old. It has to be modernized. That's number one. That just was always the case. So if you live in the United States and you walk 100 yards out of your house and go to any small manufacturer or mid-sized manufacturer, maybe even a large manufacturer, you're going to find a lot of outdated equipment and
Mhm.
automation assets that are 30, 40 years old. And I never understood it. I said, why does your iPhone have to be replenished every 6 months, and yet your automation system can sit there for 40 years? And
Right.
I mean, I'm sure we could get the iPhone to run for at least 10. We could get it to run for 10
Mhm.
years. It may run slow
Mm.
after 10 years, but it's still going to run. So I think, there's this refocus and revitalization of manufacturing in the US, which number one, I really like. And that's, really gotten more airtime than anything else in this current administration. Part of the tariffs and part of some of these actions are driving to produce more in the country, and to add more jobs and to create more jobs. And that's the greenfield part of it. That's the brownfield part of it. The greenfield part of it is, that there's foreign and domestic investments coming into the United States. I just read the report of over $5 trillion. This is what more or less has been pledged by companies coming in. $5 trillion. That's really a lot of money, right?
Wow.
And
Mhm.
expected jobs of, maybe 38 million jobs by 2033. I mean, and let's even say those numbers are off by a factor of
Mm.
half. Let's just say the
Mm.
numbers weren't right and something didn't pan out. Administrations change, the vehicles changed. Uh, but I still think, irrespective, you're talking about a massive number of opportunities coming into the United States, greenfield especially, foreign multinationals having to manufacture in the country, more job creation, more greenfield. You're never going to build these manufacturing facilities in a prehistoric way. You want to do this in a state of the art way. So you have to have digital transformation in play, and you have to marry advanced automation with simulation and get the benefits out of it. I mean, that's the only way you're going to get the best equipped high
Yeah.
tech workforce to produce the highest tech products and then
Mhm.
become a net exporter. And I think that's what's super exciting to me is to be able to do this. So, to me, beyond everything we do in advisory as AXD, it's also, time to really take our integration expertise and know-how and use the leverage of that to help feed that 38 million new jobs supposedly and the $5 trillion of foreign indirect investments.
Yeah, so you would say that USA stands at a very good and strong position as a manufacturing powerhouse today, especially with, like you said, the new emphasis on reducing imports and, yeah, being independent from other countries.
Yeah, and I think there's always this notion that it's good to manufacture in proximity to your markets. So, companies that do this generally win. Companies that did it in the past,
Yeah.
even before tariffs and everything else, were the ones that really succeeded. So, when you produce in proximity to the markets you serve, you're able to deal with the personalization and customization of what those markets need and react very fast, right? And you don't got to wait for things to be shipped on products and that take months or whatnot. You're able to react very quickly. So I think this is the new model, to be able to
Mhm.
manufacture in environments that you live in close proximity to, and the fact that if you don't do it here, there's a price to pay for not manufacturing in the country, right?
Yeah.
And because we want jobs, I think India is not different. They want make in India and made in India, and the administration also figured that out how important manufacturing is.
Mm.
And I just heard a report, Michael, that we're going to ship the bulk of iPhones to the United States from India now, not even China. So who would have ever thought India would become an iPhone manufacturing powerhouse? But the U.S. needs a lot of iPhones, and
Yes. And
the
in
fact,
fact, there are also plans to now establish these huge assembly lines for semiconductors in
yeah,
India, especially in
yeah,
Gujarat. And that's something, I mean, as optimistic as I am, and as much as I love India, I didn't see that coming. And that is a big shift, I would say. And
right,
um, yes, so I think my biggest takeaway from what you said is how innovation and manufacturing have to be in close proximity.
yeah, yeah, it's
And that's
true,
where, yeah,
yeah, no,
AXD is, that's what we are doing. Today we have our operations in India. Of course, we have our base in the US. AXD is incorporated in Michigan. And we have a team consisting of Americans and Indians. The world is digital today, of course. We are doing great. This interview is happening virtually.
yeah,
Um, but I think, yeah, what you said is really important. And your perspective on how the US is going to tackle this current geopolitical situation and how it's going to make American manufacturing great again. That is a really interesting and exciting aspect for AXD, especially.
yeah, yeah, and I think we'll be in very different times in years to come. I think once all the tariff things settle down and companies really start to put brick and mortar in the country and start to innovate and manufacture. And India's, also done a great job with this, right? Because they obviously they're already doing it, and they're producing and manufacturing much more than they've ever done before. Uh, so I think the U.S. will absolutely get there. We are the center of capitalism of the world, for since the existence, and I think it'll go back to its glory, in doing that. And I just believe right now this is the time for the United States to shine, right, in manufacturing and innovation and investments, in anywhere close to that $5 trillion I talked about, which is not my made up figure; it's a public stat, so you can Google it. But it's just super powerful, right? So you can imagine what opportunities will come out of that.
Yeah,
And so this is what's, in my view, super attractive about the industry and about the environment.
great. Thank you so much, Raj, for your insights. And thank you once again for your enthusiasm and presence today. I'm super pumped after our discussion. Um, and yeah, I think that brings us to the end of the first of many future conversations. in AxD's podcast that we call Make American Manufacturing Great Again. We hope you enjoyed hearing about our startup journey at AxD. And yeah, Raj, talking to you today, it just made me realize that every great venture starts with a bold idea and a lot of perseverance. So, yeah, thank you for tuning in. And we look forward to sharing more insights on industry trends, challenges in the manufacturing industry, tech innovations, and entrepreneurship with you in the coming episodes. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel, leave a comment, and let us know what you'd like us to cover next. Until then, keep innovating and stay inspired. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.